Welcome to the Catholic Midlife podcast, where we address the challenges and the opportunities of midlife from a uniquely Catholic perspective. This is the time, my friends, for a deeper renewal of your Christian vocation. Come and enter into the freedom of Christ that allows you to be the person you were created to be, because there's an amazing, awesome, exciting next season of life waiting for you.
Hello, and welcome to the Catholic Midlife Podcast. I'm Curtis. I'm here with Karen.
Hi, everyone. It's good to be here with you. And I have a listener comment to share, Curtis.
Oh, great.
Listener said, I really appreciated your last episode in the Boundaries season. It helped me to put my finger on what I was feeling and also to appreciate that a wall is not a boundary.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was a nice way to put it.
That's such a great sharing. So thank you for that. And we're always so interested to hear your thoughts and experiences around the podcast. So keep them coming. Karen, we are going to talk about how to set a boundary and tips and traps.
Oh,
how's that
goody.
sound?
That sounds really exciting. Something very practical.
Yeah, something practical.
So if our listeners happen to do a little thinking over the last couple of weeks about areas they'd like to create, to set, or revise a boundary, this is going to be really helpful.
Well, it's helpful. And remember that boundaries, they serve you.
Yeah.
They serve your relationship. They serve your family life, your work situation, how you're relating to church. And boundaries are good news.
Right.
It's something positive to work on. And they can be communicated without a lot of heat.
Yeah.
And without unpleasantness.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's not always going to be that way, but I want to take some of the, I don't know, is there some negativity around the thought of setting a boundary?
Yeah. I think there's a lot of negativity. And I think you're mentioning a mindset shift that would be super awesome if we could start to appreciate how important and special and unique they are and really get to like our boundaries.
Yeah. So let's set a boundary. It's going to serve everyone involved. And we have some tools to work on it and we can work it out. Let's get it done. How's that?
That's awesome.
That's what we're aiming for. So, Karen, as you like to point out, the first step is to identify your boundaries.
I have been saying that a lot, haven't I?
Have some awareness.
I have.
So what is it that's happening?
Yeah.
And often the emotionals are a first clue to point you in a direction. Well, okay, so what do I need to feel comfortable? Or what do I need to feel valued? Or
what do I need to feel like I can respond the way I want to respond to my call and my vocation?
Right. And it's good, I think, early to have some clarity on consequences.
Yes.
What consequences am I prepared to enforce?
Right.
And what kind of maybe pushback am I willing to put up with? So you're kind of laying the groundwork for that. And then...
So can I just ask a question about that?
Okay.
So it's sounding to me like really before I even consider communicating a boundary, I really have to know what my consequences are around that boundary.
I have different feelings about it. I think it goes to how big a deal it is.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's really hard to set a boundary. So maybe as we get into more examples, that'll be clarifying.
Okay.
And you're getting ready to communicate the boundary. So now, Karen, sometimes we think about this and then we realize, okay, what I'm going to do is the next time this comes up, I'm just going to push back on that. The next time somebody snipes at me in this particular way, perhaps not intentionally, I'll just step up and say, I would appreciate it if you wouldn't be disparaging. That language, I think, is not helpful. Mm-hmm. That would be a kind of preparation to do a spontaneous enforcement. Other times, you're going to rehearse your language a little bit because you want to be clear and concise. And you want to be well rehearsed enough so that you don't have this emotional heat, and you want to be rehearsed enough so you can be assertive and put it out there.
So what I'm hearing from what you're saying is that it can even be helpful to think about, well, what are the responses I might get as I communicate a boundary, and how will I hold fast to continue to assert this boundary and not just give up?
Yeah. So with clients, sometimes we'll do some role play, like if it's a big deal, and we'll try to anticipate some of the objections and everything else and rehearse how we're going to respond to that.
Right.
And be prepared for the pushback. So some kind of preparation, I think, is helpful. It's going to help you think about, like you mentioned last episode, sometimes we enter into the conflict and we don't quite realize what it is.
Yeah.
What is my problem? What's my problem with the clothes on the floor? It's not so much that I have to bend over and move them. It's what that says to me.
Yeah. So let's say I'm not going to just wait for the next thing to happen. I'm actually going to find a time to address the issue with someone and talk about the boundary. Is there anything I need to think about around that?
Right. So find the ideal time. Right. So
Okay.
Every child knows that the time to approach dad is after dinner when he's calmed down. Then you can go ask him your whatever terrible thing you're going to ask him.
Not when he's hangry and just walked in the door.
And grumpy. That's right. So find an ideal time, and you might find the ideal time to set a time and topic.
Sure.
Like, well, I would really like to talk about, this kid and their finances, and this has been a difficult topic. Can we go out and have coffee tomorrow afternoon and work through this? That's an example of setting a time, and hopefully you're doing that at a time where that person's in a good mood, good enough mood to receive it. So Karen, let's just keep it at a high level right now. The other thing you want to do is be prepared for the pushback. You're going to have to reinforce your boundaries, because expecting people to change is kind of a lot, because people normally don't change. That's why we're called people.
So do you think that we assume this a lot? Well, but I told them blah, 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 or I said this, or I asked for this. So I just assume that if they're well-intentioned, they're just going to give that to me.
Yeah, and it's best to have a non-judgmental attitude around this.
Yeah.
So expect them to need some reminding, some reinforcement, maybe consequences. So this one lady, she would put it in terms of testing boundaries. She was a school teacher. And if she told you something and you didn't do it right the next time, she'd be like, "You're testing my boundaries just like a small child." And then she'd just be all over you.
Oh, that was her way of reinforcing.
That was, she went to some talk by some psychologist and said, people will always test your boundaries, so you have to crack down on them really hard. So she took that to heart.
Yeah. I feel like for me, sometimes I really would want to change, but sometimes the pattern is there, and I really would welcome some reminding till I can shift over like the pattern of whatever it is.
Yeah. Well, that's a really empowered outlook.
Oh, well, thank you.
I think as on the boundary setting side, trying to get into this mindset of, hey, I'm going to have to do some reminding. That's just how this works.
Right.
People naturally resist change or they forget about it. So as I embark on this process, I'm going to embrace the follow-up as well. So you pick up one end of the stick, which is starting the process, and the other end of the stick is sticking with it.
Ooh, that was pretty cute, honey.
Cha-ching.
Pretty clever. So are there things that I want to avoid if I'm embarking on this process and it's a little new to me and I'm learning how to communicate all of this? I'm guessing there are some mistakes I could make.
Yeah, my rule is avoid women and the police.
Good luck with that, honey.
Yeah, well, it hasn't worked. But if you can't do that, at least avoid these other things.
Okay.
So avoid being passive. So this is pretty basic. Avoid having an issue and not saying anything. Avoid letting people do and say what you don't agree with. Avoid ignoring things that trigger you. And look, this is life, and we tolerate a lot, and sometimes that's a great choice. If you choose to tolerate certain behaviors, then that's on you. You're deciding, hey, it's not worth it.
Yeah.
I'm choosing to tolerate this. So be happy with your choice.
Yeah.
However, being passive has its risks. And so generally, I don't know, let's call it something to avoid. Now, here, certainly you want to avoid being aggressive, getting loud, demeaning, unkind. And you can love or hate Donald Trump, but that man is aggressive, right? He's all those things. Being difficult, trying to be combative to get your way. This is not the way that's going to get you great results.
So it's almost like I could be experiencing harm or pain or discomfort, and then I want you to feel the pain.
Yeah,
and
feel
then
my
somehow
pain.
You're going to stop doing the thing if you feel my pain.
That's right.
Yeah.
I remember talking with my secretary. We were getting an out of U.S. lawyer to pay his bills. And she said, am I going to write that? And I said, yes, I want him to feel my pain.
He needs to know. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the law for you. It's all about the threat. Really, police action underlies everything that we do. And that's why it can be hard to be a friendly lawyer. But we don't have to approach our relationships like litigation,
Yeah.
where it's two opposing sides. We simply can avoid being aggressive.
So you know what the other thing is? This is just coming to me, Curtis, but sometimes I feel like there's this word, this phrase, passive aggressive. It's like both of those things together. And I think I've always struggled to fully understand when that's going on or what that looks like.
Well, yeah, it takes a lot of forms. What a classic thing is somebody tells you to do X and then you do exactly what they say, knowing that the result they want is Y. But because you did exactly what they said, X, and they don't get the result they want, that's passive aggressive.
Ah.
That's really classic.
So it's passive, but then I'm really happy because they got the wrong result.
I'm pretending to be compliant, but what I'm actually doing is undermining you.
Okay.
So another way to do this is somebody brings an issue about you to you, and you respond by attacking them on a different issue.
Okay.
And is that passive aggressive? Yeah, I would say so. So,
this other
honey,
example.
could you not run the TV at full volume just because there's a football game on? Okay, like there's other things going on in the house. Well, do I complain when you start yakking on the phone real loud with your mom?
Oh.
That's kind of a passive aggressive
very
approach,
good.
I think.
Very good.
Or the punishment. Okay, well, I'll pick up my laundry, but I'm going to be real sullen. I'm going to try to ruin your day like Calvin, spreading my bad news, my bad mood everywhere.
Yes.
And then once I make you grumpy, then it's my victory.
Yeah. Or maybe, see, this other thing is coming to me like, well, I have this problem with you and I'm going to be passive and not tell you about it, but I'm going to go over here and complain to your boss about it and say all the things that I don't like about what you're doing, or to other people in the office.
Yeah, that's probably some kind of passive aggressive mode. So anyway, those are all the kinds of things we're trying to avoid. We're setting boundaries. We're going to be assertive.
Okay.
We want to speak in a way that can't be ignored. It's very clear. It's candid. It's open communication. And that's how we're hoping to command attention, simply through our content and confidence. Here's a great tip. This is pretty concise, a little easier to remember. So setting a boundary, you can start with I want, I need, or I expect. That's 3 great ways to start with setting your boundaries. So for example, I want you to stop asking me when I'm going to get married and have kids.
Okay.
Or I need you to call me before you drop by. Or, I expect you to call me on my birthday. I expect you to return my car full of gas and pay for any damage. And in general, when you're setting a boundary, giving explanations simply undercuts you.
Okay.
If this is what you really want, expect, or need, then giving explanations, and especially giving any lengthy explanation, is simply undermining you.
So I don't have to go on and on and on about why I have this boundary. I'm a person with the right to set my boundaries and to be clear about them.
That's right. So sometimes a brief explanation is helpful. When you leave your clothes on the floor, it makes me feel like I'm not valued and I'm your servant. So I would like you to put them away properly in the future. You're giving a little bit of an explanation.
Yeah.
And that's maybe helpful. But I need you to call me before you drop by.
Right.
Look, giving an explanation, man, that is not going to help you. It's just going to open up some kind of can of worms. And the thing to remember is that having boundaries, it's good. It's appropriate. It's going to help you and it's going to help the relationship. And you don't owe explanations to other people.
I think what I would need to do, something that's coming up for me in this conversation, is I think I would need to practice my tone, because the words that you're saying that are sticking with me are assertive, clear, kind, and firm. And to practice how I'm saying that in a kind, clear, firm, assertive tone, I think that could help me a lot.
Some practice.
Yeah.
Probably I should have added the word confident, because if you're all those things,
yeah,
you're going to present it with some confidence.
Yeah. I can have confidence in my right and actually my obligation to set boundaries, some confidence in my own ability to make decisions about what they are and what I'm stewarding and how they're making it possible for me to live a certain way. And I can be confident that I can handle this. I can handle whatever comes to work through maintaining my boundary.
So, Karen, you ready for some examples?
Yeah, bring it on.
How about, please don't talk about our son-in-law like that. I would like you to be nice to him for the sake of our daughter. Okay. Or, thanks for inviting me. I'm going to sit this one out.
Oh, no explanation.
No explanation.
No.
That reminds me of the definition of an introvert. It's somebody that likes to be invited to the party but doesn't want to go.
That's really cute.
And if that's you, then just say, really emphasize the thank you part. How about, please stop picking fights with dad at family gatherings. And you're asking for what you want. I mean, depending on what the fighting's about, there might be some negotiation, but I'm suggesting that this could be a good boundary depending on the situation.
You know, I had a coach mentor once, and I remember they said, I think I had said something about setting a boundary, and I was like, well, I would just say to that person, I can't help you that day. I have a conflict. And she said, you know, you really don't want to say I have a conflict, because you may or may not end up having that conflict. If you didn't have it, would you still say yes? And I said, well, no, I wouldn't. So she was like, the simpler, the shorter, the better.
Oh, you have a conflict that day? Well, what about the day after that?
Yeah.
Oh, the day after that.
Yeah.
Don't you want to help?
Yeah. So that did stick with me.
Karen, this is such a big topic. I think we're going to have another episode on this. And we're going to talk about
that'd be fun.
Maybe pushback and how to stick to your guns.
Okay.
Anything you want to add here before we wrap this one up?
Well, I think when it comes to this topic, like so many others, it's all about getting out there and trying it and practicing and getting the feedback. Nobody's perfect at all of this, and we're not going to do it perfectly or not make mistakes, but that's how we learn and grow. So get out there and get the feedback and practice. And that's how you make progress.
It's great to be here with everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We invite you to join us at our website at thecatholicmidlife.com. There's resources, information, all sorts of things you can't live without. So go check it out. We'll see you next week. Thanks for being here with us. The Catholic Midlife Podcast is for anyone that wants to receive the abundance of life that God has for each one of us. Take a moment right now to tell a friend about us.